perspective, it wouldn't be a bad idea that we remind ourselves about something we already knew. And then for people that are young in the research field who may not be very conversant with some of the tools, well, this might be an introduction. I am not promising that I will be able to deal with every aspect of this topic, but I do think I will be able to spur your interest to push even further from what we would touch on today. So what do I plan to cover in this? Academic writing, what does it mean? What are the types? And then what are the common academic writing tools? Then from amongst those tools, we'll be looking at one of them specifically, which is the Microsoft Office tools. But then we'll take a short quiz. So we would see what is our response to some very quick questions. So at least that will show some level of participation in the program. And then Microsoft tools for academic writing. We'll narrow down to 3 of them and why those 3. And then we'll take a summary. And then we close with a brief and a compliment, and then we'll take some question and answer. So if we say academic writing.
Sorry, please, can you permit me to interrupt, please? Yeah,
please
you have like, you have like 40 minutes for the discussion, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So when we say academic writing, basically when you say a writing, it's just a writing, it's a combination of words. And when you put words together, you form a sentence. When you have multiple sentences, you'll be writing a paragraph. And when you have combined paragraphs, you'll probably be developing maybe a section or a chapter. So when you have collection of sections, you might have written just a single piece of document. Or if you have collection of chapters instead of sections, you could have written maybe a book or a thesis, as the case might be. So that's why I've suggested that a collection of words put together in a style meant for education purpose. Underline that word style. Academic writing has a style. And that style, if violated, it then would vary from field to field within the academic areas of research. And the essence of style, if you dig a little bit further on your own, you would be able to find out that the use of words, generally, for instance, if I call our attention to one common area of style, difference in style, the use of spellings. If you are writing and you're using American English language, or you're using British writing languages, then in that case, you would use some peculiar ways of spelling certain words. So that may become relevant if you are submitting your article, for instance, to an American-based journal, submitting your article to a British-based journal. You may get feedback from reviewers underlining certain things for you, depending on who is in charge of what. Again, it could be a process of presenting factual, consistent information with clarity and a purpose to educate. So that as well could be what we would term academic writing. So writing generally belongs to all areas. people would write for different reasons. But when we do write for academic purposes, then we want to be sure that the features of what we write on, how do we distinguish an academic writing from other forms of writing? An academic writing is formal. You don't use colloquial languages. You don't use like common words. And when we say formal, when I say we don't use common words, what that implies is that in your field, the way certain words are used, you have to master it and use it like that. For instance, if you pick the word that describes the amount of things, the chemist would prefer to talk about amount. The people in academic as well, in economics, would prefer to use quantity. Some categories of scientists would prefer to use volume. Some categories of scientists would prefer to deal with mass. All of this plays around the amount of things, matter that you're dealing with. So that is formal, and that is you using the appropriate word and sticking to the rules. Then when you write, you are being factual and unbiased. That is, the content of what you have written is not predetermined. You are going to report things that can be backed by scientific reasoning, by engineering judgments, and that should also be logical and fits into philosophical arguments. And that's why the peak of all degrees we get in academics is to be addressed as a doctor of philosophy, someone who is able to ask an appropriate question and provide relevant answers. Well, we will get to know that asking question is more important than the answers. If you ask the appropriate question, you're going to get the appropriate answer. So when you write, and when we say this is going to pass for an academic writing, then it should be factual and unbiased. Then when you write as well, you need to write with clarity and precise use of words. Different levels of writing requires different volumes of words usage. And so when you mean to say yes, you must be clear. When you mean to say no, you also must be clear. You don't allow what you have written to be marred or smeared with ambiguity. So when you do academic writing, what distinguishes it from other forms of writing is that it precludes ambiguity. It's clear, and the use of words are precise. Then, when you do academic writing as well, you must acknowledge that you are not the first person that is going to be doing academic writing. The more reason why you have to cite previous writers in the academic field. And that is why you say referenced. So you don't just write an opinion. Even people in the arts who are into journalism, when they are writing a journalistic article, yes, they may write things without having to reference anybody directly, and then they say they are writing an opinion. But when they have to write an academic journalistic writing, they themselves would reference every bit of what they have, opinion they have expressed. So an academic writing is referenced, meaning you would bring to bear other people who in the past share the same line of thought with what you are expressing in this. As other persons interpreted the results you have from your work, your observations, the way you have also expressed their interpretations. Do you have anybody in the past who had done something similar to what you are doing now, who for whatever reasons, are probably given a parallel opinion to what you are expressing. So when we say reference, it does not mean that that person has said exactly what you are saying now. You would reference somebody who had written somebody sometimes in the opposite opinion of what you have presented. That is to say, other people have looked at that case in the past too, but then they came to a different conclusion than you are expressing now. And then you will then justify why you are saying what you are saying now. So you have brought people to speed on what has happened, what is happening, and you may as well then project into future. In the whole of that, you must be consistent. When we say consistency, there should be coherence in the line of thoughts when you do an academic writing. An academic writing, it's a story. It should flow. The thoughts should not be disjointed. So these are bits of what I could express as features of academic writing. So when you then do academic writing, you could have done that as a seminar or a term paper. That's a short essay, probably submitted as part of a course, a laboratory report, an original research article, a review research article, a dissertation or thesis, a grant proposal, a research proposal. So these are a few examples or types of writings that we do in the academic. Whatever area of work that you have done, any writing you're doing academic will fall under one of these categories. Now, so when people do academic writings, what tools do they use? What I've put up here is not exhaustive. This is not essentially everything there is for us to be able to say the tools we have to do academic writing. This is not everything. But then I say common academic writing tools. People use LaTeX, LibreOffice for people who uses the so people who don't use Office, Microsoft Office, so they use LibreOffice. And then we have some other tools. We have Mendeley, we have Zotero, we have EndNote, Ref and Write. Then we have Microsoft Office tools. We have WordTune, we have Grammarly. You can see I put some of these things highlighted. The ones I highlighted, these are tools that could be combined. They are tools that could be combined. For instance, somebody is using MS Office tools. You could have Grammarly running concurrently while you complete your writing. You could have Mendeley writing concurrently. You could have Zotero. You could have EndNote. Some of these tools could be used together. For instance, when you use MS Office tools together with Grammarly, that's fine. And what role does Grammarly do? It helps you to refine your writing. I will speak to that later on. Microsoft Office itself has its own inbuilt a grammar or editing tool. But Grammarly is a separate software that could be added to Microsoft Office as an add-in. Again, you can as well add Mendeley into Microsoft Office tools. When you do add Mendeley, it's acting as an independent software that is integrated with Microsoft Office. Again, Microsoft Office has its own inbuilt referencing tab or tool. So, but then if you want to do referencing with a separate software than what is inbuilt in Microsoft Office, then you could use any of Mendeley, Zotero, EndNote, Ref and Write. But if what you care about is to use a different writing template, a different writing platform, apart from Microsoft Office, then you could use LaTeX, you could use LibreOffice, you could use WordTune. So these are a few things I would comment on this. So I would appreciate later on that people who would have questions about what I'm presenting would probably help me get into some other nitty-gritty in case I missed to mention them. So maybe we should run a quick poll. Yusuf, if you could help me with this, can you throw this as a poll? What are the common MS tools in use? Let's see what people write. What are the common MS tools in use? Let's see the result of the poll.
Okay, Kevin, I'll be at that in a moment. I'm thinking, can you progress on other aspect of the talk while I handle this in a moment?
I would prefer to wait while you do this. Otherwise, the purpose of the poll is defeated.
Okay, all right. I'm on it right now. Having trouble with this right now.
Okay, so maybe if we are unable to get on with the poll, can people type in the chat box then?
Poll, yeah, okay.
What are the common MS tools in use? Let people type in the chat box. Let's see what the responses are.
They're actually doing that right now. They're doing it. Thank you.
All right. Okay, Outlook, Word, PowerPoint,
Excel, what here? You can see that.
Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, Microsoft tools. Mendeley will not be there.
PowerPoint, Microsoft Access. Okay.
Microsoft Access. LibreOffice will not be there. LaTeX will not be there. Those are writing tools, but they are not MS Office tools. They are not part of the MS package. MS PowerPoint. Mendeley is not part of the Office tools. LaTeX is not one of it. Grammarly is not there. EndNote is not there. Then MS Office is the whole package. We're saying what are the components of the MS Office?
So basically, they'll be mentioning Excel, Word, and then PowerPoint.
Yeah, those. Then we've seen Access to. We've seen OneNote.
Yeah,
I've seen
yes,
Outlook.
also, yes. Also,
we've seen
Outlook,
Outlook.
too, yes. Yes, that's correct. So basically, 5 of the Microsoft tools.
Okay. Okay. So nobody had mentioned Microsoft Office Visual. Okay. Now let's move on to the next one. So can everybody see my screen?
Yes, I can see it from my hand. I hope they can also see it.
Okay.
Yes,
so essentially, I've written common MS Office tools. And again, I've highlighted 3 of them. So for the purpose of our discussion tonight, we're saying academic writing. Most importantly, people would use Microsoft Office, Microsoft Excel, and Microsoft PowerPoint. Out of all the many Microsoft Office tools, Microsoft Office packages, so these three that I've highlighted are very much relevant to academic writing. And we'll see in a bit what people do with them. Now, we have a few more questions. What do people use MS PowerPoint for? Can people write in the chat box? Let's see what people write. What do people use Microsoft PowerPoint for? We'll do each of the questions one after the other.
Okay.
So what would we use
Microsoft
PowerPoint
presentation.
for? Presentation.
Presentation, yeah. And also some drawings again. Another person answers some drawings.
Okay.
Lectures.
Lectures. Okay, that still comes as presentation.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so now, if that is the case, I agree. Okay, somebody says, and for
format of images
and figures. Okay, so, okay, that's fine. So far, we've captured most of the things I have in mind as well. We use Microsoft PowerPoint for presentation, and we use Microsoft PowerPoint as well for image editing. We use Microsoft PowerPoint for creation of figures, but that we would clarify as we move ahead. Okay, now let's answer the next question. What would you use MS Word for? What would you use MS Word for? So do people have, okay. So we already have this now. So we'll declare, we'll see the result of the polls shortly.
Yes.
We have 54 of us on this call. Yes. 7 persons have responded. Please, let's all try to write in. I'm only facilitating this talk. I'm only a lead speaker. I don't believe only my voice should be heard in understanding the topic we are doing tonight. So, and when you do express your thoughts in polls like this, you would share your understanding with the rest of us.
So we have 11 people answered already.
Yes, so we still have some 44 persons.
Yes.
Either staying on the fence or who doesn't use MS Word.
Okay.
Oh, some people are writing in the chat box.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, somebody said we use MS Word for writings and reports. So writing, drawing and designing, but not like CorelDRAW, editing. Okay. So we have 16 in the polls.
On the poll, we have 16 people already now. Yeah.
Okay, somebody says for text manipulation. Okay. Somebody said to write, report, editing images as well. General write-ups. To pass information to people.
Can I end the poll now?
Yes, okay. You can. So if we show the results. So can we see the results?
Just share the results. Yeah, I've just shared it right now.
Okay.
Can you see it on your end, please?
Well, I can't see it yet. Maybe because I'm presenting.
Can't see it.
Okay, can the rest of the people see it?
I think they can, yeah.
I can see it.
Okay, that's fine. So now, the next question that I want us to answer is, can people list the functionalities you know in MS Word? What are the functionalities within MS Word? You know, people have said they use it to write, they use it to proofread, they use it to draw. That is pointing to some functionalities that they think MS Word has. So what can you list the functionalities? That is you expressing the capability of Microsoft Word. What can Microsoft Word help you to do to complete an academic writing? You know, like I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, I'm probably not going to be telling you everything about this topic. It might be a reminder for some of us. For some persons, they'll be learning some few new things. Okay, somebody says read aloud, grammar checking, plagiarism, make an outline, editing, drawing references. Okay. Equation writing, auto content generation, auto referencing generation. Okay, somebody says to merge writings, review and correction. Yes, so I think we've gotten some very important, interesting responses in the chat box. Okay, now I would say, what would you use MS Excel for? What would you use MS Excel for? Okay, somebody says, I mean that I would think that person is saying data visualization, calculations,
okay,
data imputing and analysis, for charts. To draw charts and calculations, data analysis, visualization, interpretation. Draw charts. All right, thank you very much. So this shows that for the most part of my presentation tonight, I've not been left to myself. I've not been left to myself to carry on with this presentation. People have paid attention to what we are discussing. Okay, now let's go through the remaining slides together. So this way, you would be able to hold me responsible for the rest of the things I'll be presenting today. And when we get to question and answer, I would think then we can have a more robust conversation at the question and answer session, given what I've seen in your responses. So look at this. All of these images you see here are created with Microsoft PowerPoint. All these schematics. All these schematics here are created using PowerPoint. So this is one of the extra capabilities Microsoft PowerPoint has. You could use Microsoft PowerPoint to create schematics. And when we do academic writing, many a times for those of us that are in sciences and engineering, we do have to annotate our writings using figures to drive home our points. Sometimes the images that we want to paint may exist, probably because we've taken some pictures with our phones or some other image making devices. Or sometimes we only have an idea of what we want to project, but the images does not exist anywhere. We have to create the image ourselves. But we don't want to do something very, very fancy. And then we can just get onto Microsoft PowerPoint to create what we intend. And these are just examples. If you look at the one that is in the bottom left-hand corner, you would imagine here that this image is depicting water and concrete. And you've been able to differentiate with colors, a watermark, sort of. If you consider this one that is in the middle here as well, that has A and B, so that is you showing a notch on a sample. And again, the first part has 2 layers, and you have all of this made from PowerPoint. There are more complex cases, drawings you can do with PowerPoint as well. But other than this, when you process an academic writing, these are a few things, a summary of things we would do. These are a summary of things we would do. For instance, we process numerical data in MS Excel to create plot figure. So you may have collected some data in the lab. You need to clean them up. You need to do some basic statistical analysis so that you could see whether the figures you have, the data you have, makes sense or not. You may test your data using many statistical inferencing tools. And all of that, again, you can do within Excel. But when you have done all of that, you still need to represent, you need to visualize that data. You need to tell a story with that data other than mere presenting it the way you've collected them. Then you can as well, this is something that nobody mentioned, you can create a master literature base with MS Excel. You can create a master literature base with MS Excel, particularly for people doing PhD. In the last days of your PhD, when you would have to write your big book, if you are doing a PhD that is based on thesis writing, you might be writing a big book. Or if you are doing a PhD that is paper-based, then maybe you wouldn't worry so much. Yes, you can still create a literature base, master literature base, but it will not be as useful, as significantly required as it would have been for somebody that is writing a big book, doing a PhD by thesis, like traditional writing of thesis. Then with Microsoft PowerPoint, you create figure for the planned writing. When I say create figure for the planned writing, what I mean is that lay out the story. All of the figures that you have collected, you have already prepared them into figures, into charts, and all kinds of things. Some of them are images that you need to annotate. You take that image probably from your lab, then you need to put an arrow and say, this one is showing this one is showing that one, and things like that. So all of that you can do within Microsoft PowerPoint. And then when you create those type of figures, then you can then save them as pictures. You could bring a picture into Microsoft PowerPoint. Then you have done a couple of modifications to it, and then you can save it back as a picture, either as a TFF, as a PNG, or as a PNG, as the case might be. So in different versions, depending on what suits the kind of documents you are creating. Then you can save each of the figures as a picture into a folder. When you are saving them into this folder now, with numbers, you're paying attention now to say, the story I want to tell, which of these figures will come first? Because you must have the story formed in your head, and your pictures must help you lay out that story coherently. So you will say figure 1, figure 2. When you put numbers to them, it therefore implies that 2 cannot come before 1. So you save 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, until all of the figures you have. The same thing you will do for your tables. Usually you will use tables when you have to present parameters you have used in a particular experiment. So again, you would have said table 1, table 2, table 3, table 4. When all of these are laid out, in your head, you would have thought about what do I want the audience to understand from this figure number 1? What do I want the audience or the reader understand from this figure number 2? All of those things that you have imagined, you want the audience to understand from that figure must be coherent. They must be consistent. They must interlink. That is one of the uses of Microsoft PowerPoint. It helps you lay out your figures after you have created the figures. Mere taking of images in the lab using your microscope, your whether SEM, your optical microscope, or your transmission electron microscopy, or your atomic force microscope to take images is not enough. Those are just data. You need to process those images, and you will process them in Microsoft PowerPoint usually. Out of all of the Microsoft tools, I'm not saying that it is only Microsoft PowerPoint you can use to process images. I'm saying out of all the Microsoft Office tools, the one you would use amongst them to process your images for academic writing would be Microsoft PowerPoint. Then that would have helped you. So when you have created, you've processed all of the images, then you have created figures out of them for your writing. Then you would have numbered them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as the case might be, until the last image. Then do the actual writing in MS Word. Now, I would ask this question. Which of the steps comes first? Can people please respond in the chat, or we can do a quick poll? Which of all of these steps should come first? Between Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Excel, which of them comes first? Which of them would you start to use first when you want to do academic writing? People can write in their answers in the chat box, or you can throw up a quick poll so that we'll see what the responses are. Okay, you can quickly do the polls. Let's see how many persons are saying Word, how many persons are saying Excel, how many persons are saying PowerPoint.
At the moment, we have 11 people saying Word.
Microsoft
so now
Word.
it's 12. Yeah, Excel 1, PowerPoint 0. So now Word is now 15 now. Excel's 2. PowerPoint 1. Should I end
so that is still
or
19 persons. That is still response from 19 persons.
17 to 20, 18 to 22 now. I'm coming 18, 12, 20, 22 at the moment.
Interesting. I'm tempted to wait until the 50 persons respond. Can we all please respond?
Kindly please respond.
Interesting.
So far, we have 25 people.
Out of 56 or 55?
4. Okay.
Please, can you please join, everybody please join the poll. Which of them comes first?
Either Word, Excel, or PowerPoint.
Okay, so if we are writing proposal development, so we have 29 persons. Now, if you're writing proposal, then you're starting with Microsoft Word. So if we hand the poll now, if we do hand the poll, so you can hand the poll, share the results.
So I've just done that. Yes, shared.
All
I'm
right.
not sure you can
Okay.
see it
So,
from your hand.
Yes, it's not likely. So
Okay.
essentially, it depends on the type of writing you are doing. It depends on the type of writing you are doing. If you are not doing a writing that creates figures, then MS PowerPoint is out of it. MS Excel could be out of it if you had not created or generated any data before you start to write. If you would have to use MS Excel first, in the case where you're writing a grant proposal, or you're writing a research proposal, or you are writing a term paper or a seminar, MS Excel would only come in if you are trying to create a literature base. Because there's no writing you would do without reading. Writing is almost synonymous to reading. You can't write anything if you don't read. You need to read first. You need to read something before you can write. So when you are creating the literature base, then Microsoft Excel can be very useful from that perspective. But if you are doing an original, an article writing for an original research that requires creation of figures, then you would have to use MS PowerPoint first. Or you have to use Excel first to polish your data and modify them, create figures out of them. But the figures you would actually present in your writing, you would have to create them from PowerPoint. Lay them out in that PowerPoint. So that you have one slide, one figure, one slide, one figure, one slide, one figure. You would be able to write your thoughts about what you think each of those figures should express. That is you now creating your story. Because if you don't get your story right before you start to expand them, then there will be a lot of issues. It is when you have done that, you created each of the figures for each of the slides, you write your thoughts about what you think that picture or that image should tell the audience, then you can then start, that gives you an idea. Say, how to do the actual writing in MS Word. So if I move on to my next slide now. So before you start to write in MS Word, you ask yourself these questions. Are the inputs ready? What are they? Set up the structure. Use the storyline created with the figures laid out in your MS PowerPoint. This is me now, assuming the type of writing you want to do is an original research article that involves collection of data, that involves creation of images or figures. And then you say, how? How do you do that? Set up that structure. I've laid some kind of explanation to it. And then think about the body of the text. Now, the stories that you have laid out would help you determine the headings, the sub-headings that should go in your write-up. The main heading, the sub-headings. Then the captions that goes with each of those figures. You need to think about the caption. Because when we look at the same image, we are likely going to be paying attention to different things in the same image. But you have a story to tell. Then you need to call the attention of your audience to what you want them to see in the figure. That is the essence of the caption. So the caption goes for a figure, it goes for a table, it also goes for equations. So I'm at this point now. Any question?
Thank you very much, sir, for this wonderful insight. You have really done so well by bringing insight to what we already know and then having better approach maybe to tackle or to do more using Microsoft PowerPoint. And also, before we go to the questions, I want everyone to please answer this poll. Kindly please respond before I go to the answer and questions section. Because it's definitely going to help us going forward on our way to broadcast our program and ensure we have large turnout. So far, we have 23 participants here. 25 now.
Please also, let everybody respond to this, please.
Okay, yeah, they're actually doing that too. So also, if you have responded, you can as well be dropping your questions in the chat box so we can subsequently read it. So far, we have 31 participants, and in here we are 53. Can you please respond to this? How did you hear about this program? Is it through a link from WhatsApp status of a friend? Sent to the WhatsApp group I am, saw the link in the social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, link directly sent to me personally or other forms. So we have 35. Guys, please. We don't want to waste much time. Yeah. Okay, someone is saying that can they talk out their question? Is that okay, Doc?
Yes. If they want to speak up, that's okay.
Oh, okay.
They should just raise their hand so that you can call them accordingly.
Accordingly, yeah, that will be fine. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, they should use the emoticon for raising hand.
Okay, yeah. So can you please raise your hand, then I can call you guys accordingly. In the chat box, someone said, in simple term, what is a master literature base?
Okay, I will demonstrate that.
Okay, thank you.
I'll demonstrate that.
So far on the poll, we have 38 people. Please, just need like a few people more than.
I think the trend is clear.
Clear, okay. Yeah, of course, yes. I've been able to see something.
The trend is clear.
Okay, thank you
very much. Yes, the remaining numbers you have, if you add it to any of the other categories, it doesn't change the result.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'll just end the poll now. So on the screen here, I can see someone raising their hands. Miss Neema. You can please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Yusuf, please, can you help take note of the questions?
Oh, okay. I'll be doing that along the way.
Jazakumullah khairan, Dr. Tunji. Yeah, my question is about writing the introductory part of your research. Like now, I am able to give an outline about what I want to write about. But my main problem is I'm always stuck about extracting information from previous abstracts. The question I want to ask is, with your own experience, and I would like if you can explaining to a dummy the strategy that is working for you on how you are extracting information from your abstracts. Are you looking at the introduction and then the discussion to extract certain parts of information, or you read through, or what is the working strategy for you? Because, before you can make a proof, before you can make a claim, you need information from previous research publications. I would like if you can talk about that.
All right.
Thank you very much. That is noted. Okay, yeah.
So any other one? Okay, so if I would go on, and if I stop sharing my screen now, so I would just try to open an Excel file. I'll try to open an Excel file, and then I will demonstrate what a master literature base looks like. Okay. So let me share my screen so that you see how I'm starting off everything. Let me see, share my screen. Oh, where.
There's another person raising their hand. Should I allow them to talk so I know the question while you're also doing this?
Yes, okay. That's fine.
Mr.
So you can see,
Ahmed, you can see your question.
Please go ahead, use your question.
Okay.
I guess everybody can see my screen and what I'm doing.
Yes, I can.
I'm just in my desktop now. Yes. I'm trying to create an Excel sheet. Please go ahead with your question.
Hello, Mr. or Miss Ahmed, I'm not sure. Please, you can unmute yourself and talk. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Please, wa alaikum salam wa barakatuh. Yeah.
I have internet problem in this area, so most of the slides.
Oh, I think the best thing would be that this person should.
For more understanding.
Can you please type
this
your
particular
question?
Presentation will be shared on YouTube. Okay, probably you type your question will be better. Yeah. So you can go on with what you're trying to do, sir. All right.
So if everybody can see my screen, you can see I've just opened up an Excel sheet here. So when you want to create a master literature base, what is the essence of creating a master literature base? Number one, it helps you to keep tab of what you have read when you start to read, and whose work have you read, why you read them. So a typical master literature base would have the following headings. We'll have a serial number. We'll have a serial number. So if it have a serial number, that way, I put 1, 2. For instance, I might have been reading maybe up to like maybe some 100 articles before the end of my PhD, maybe some 200 articles before the end of my PhD, for instance. Now, then the first thing I want to write here is author. Usually, authors in a paper are many. There will be many authors, but 2 particular authors are significant. The first author, so you could have a layer here, the first author, and then the corresponding author. Usually the corresponding author might be a very experienced researcher, usually the PI, the principal investigator, the supervisors of many PhD students or research students are usually the corresponding authors. So to the authors you should keep when you read a paper, keep the first author and then keep the name of the corresponding author. Then after that, you want to keep the title of the paper. You keep the title of the paper. Then, after keeping the title of the paper, you look into the paper. What is the aim of that work? What was the aim of that research? You will find that aim. Some authors will announce the aim of their work in the middle of the introduction, if you are reading a paper. Or they would announce the aim of their work in the last paragraph the last paragraph of the introduction session. In fact, some people would announce it in the last sentence they wrote in the introduction session. So once you find the aim, you document the aim. Now, what is the aim helping you to do? Then you go back and see what is their conclusion. Write out the conclusion here. Put in succinct terms summary of what they have concluded from the aim. If this is their aim, then what is the conclusion? Where do they start? Where do they end? They can then ask the question, how did they reach this conclusion? So you look at their methods. You look at their methods. Under methods, what are you paying attention to? Now, I'm speaking as a science-based person. I'm interested in their material. Which material do they use? Under this material, you'll be recording the name of the material itself, the supplier of that material. And if the author has mentioned any specific modification about how they prepare, if they prepare that material differently, the way, other than the way it was supplied, you note that also under material. Then under method as well, then you want to see how have they been able to use this material to answer the question they want to answer from the aim. There you're looking at techniques, either the experimental techniques that they have used. So you record the techniques that they have used. So when you are recording the techniques they have used, you cannot report these techniques without mentioning which machine or equipment they have used to implement that technique. And if you like, you may record that separately. You can report that as equipment. Why is all of these things necessary? Because usually we as researchers, we don't start to create the wheel all over. We often begin from where other people stopped. So if I'm going to do a research, to ask further questions about this material that this person had used in this question, I don't have to go and start disturbing myself. Oh, where will I get the material from? You already know who supplies this type of material. If you get this material, how would you process them? How do you use them? You see the techniques already. Which equipment do they use? Then you check, do we have this equipment in our school? Do we have it in our lab? Where is it located? Where can I find it? Okay, we don't have it in our school. Do we have it with any of our partners? So you check that.
Some people on the chat are saying that they can't see the visuals of what you are doing at the moment.
Oh. Well, it shows with me that I'm sharing screen.
Oh.
Can another person see my Excel sheet?
Your Excel sheet is visible, but just like it's blank, nothing is on it.
Just blank Excel sheet.
Oh, you don't see what I'm writing? Oh. Okay. So I would highlight the things I've written on the Excel sheet when I'm done then. Okay. I will highlight the things I wrote on it. And I do hope you follow my argument, only that you do not see what I've written down.
Yes.
So when you're done with the methods, you take care of three things in under methods: the material used, the technique they have used to process that material, and then which equipment have they used to implement that technique. So you take note of the manufacturer of that equipment and probably the city they are based in. So you record that. Then you come back here and say, what are the data that they got from those measurements? Now, you are looking for the evidences for this conclusion. You know, you have written aim, you have written conclusion. You're not saying, how do they come to this
conclusion? Someone
just
suggested that. Hello.
Yes, I'm listening.
Hello, Doc. Yeah, someone suggested that you should use the full screen option from your side.
Full screen.
Share, yeah, use full screen option.
Yes, I'm doing that already.
Okay.
Yes, I already do. It was already in full screen.
So maybe just not popping up then.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I
We
don't
can
know.
please
I don't
go
know
on.
why that is the case. So then when you then go to the results section, what you are looking at now is what are the evidences from the data collected that supports this conclusion? What are the evidences in the data collected that supports this conclusion? So you document that. So once you see the evidences, so here you're looking for evidence to support conclusion. To support conclusions as reached. If you can't find the evidences, you state what you think they should have written. So that now would come under your own critique. You write your own critique. Under this critique now, missing the missing links. The missing links or the gaps. Then you may as well write any other question, other questions. Other questions do you think these research had equally raised? From these two things, missing links, other questions that could be answered on this research, that is where you can find your research gaps. So if you are in the beginning stage of your PhD or your MSc, you are looking for a topic to do, this is how you can then track this out. Now, imagine that you are able to do this for every article that you read. By the time you want to start to write your thesis, it will be easy for you to find which article supports which claim. Which author does work in certain area. People do PhDs that will require them to do like multiple projects within their PhD. People could do as much as 4 projects before they finish their PhD. Some could do just 2 projects. Some could do 1 project. One person could do about 3 projects before they finish their PhD, depending on the nature of problem they are trying to solve. So by the time you want to write your thesis or you want to write your research articles for publications, it will be easy for you to find what papers to cite. Another important reason usage of this literature, master literature base, is that some supervisors would ask you, let's say for PhD students, at the end of your program, when you want to do your final presentation, they will say, do you have somebody in mind that you think could serve as your external supervisor or external examiner? Usually you would pick somebody, if you have such interest, you would pick somebody who you think knows about the field. And these little titles of first author and corresponding author will be very handy. Because those are people whose papers you have read. You have seen how much work they are doing. You can then go for some of these first and corresponding authors. You can then go and search for them on Google Scholar and follow their publications. So you get notifications every time they publish. That way you would not have missed important publications because you have seen, by the time you have read about like 50 papers in your field, you would have seen the trend. Who are those writing in your field? You would then be able to use Excel to do customized sorting such that all articles from the same first author and corresponding author are grouped together. You would have seen what topics are they writing on, how are they changing. So I think I can stop here as a quick response to the master
Thank you very
literature base.
much.
But to recap, for
Yeah,
people who do not see what I have written, I say the master literature base would have the following components: a serial number, and then we'll have a column or two columns for author. One will be for the first author, one will be for the corresponding author. These two authors are the most significant authors when you want to search for articles. At least you want to search for them again. So when you search for either of them, you will be able to find their articles easily. Then the title of the article you are reading, the aim of that article. And I say where you find the aim. Some people will announce the aim at the beginning of their introduction. Some would announce the aim in the middle of introduction, but majority of writers would announce the aim of their article in the last paragraph of the introduction session. And usually some would even announce it in the last sentence they wrote in that introduction. Then the moment you have written down the aim, then go to the conclusion. What do they conclude? This is their aim. Then what was their later findings? You see that in the conclusion. Then write down that conclusion in precise way. That helps you to understand or remember quickly what you have read before. Then you then check if they reach this conclusion for this aim, how did they get there? That's how you would see under the method. How do they reach this conclusion? You check which material do they use, which technique do they use. Under the material, you are paying attention to the material itself, who supplies that material. In case you have to do anything that requires the use of that same material, you don't have to worry about who is going to supply it. The technique, this is there you pay attention to which technique have they used to process the material. You also pay attention to which equipment have they used. Who supplies that equipment? In which city are they? Which model are the equipment? You would have recorded all of that here. All of these things will be necessary when you are writing your original article research or you're writing your thesis. You will not have to worry. You don't have to go and be looking for that paper again because you have a master Excel sheet that keeps that record for you. And then when you then see how they have done their work, then you then check what is the evidence that supports this conclusion that they reached based on the data collected. Then you go and check on that results. What are the results? Are there evidences in these results that support the conclusion reached? That would help you now to develop a critique. Are there missing links? Is there a missing link between the results and the conclusion? Are there other questions that could have been answered? So if you write out these two things under the critique heading, missing links and other questions, those will help you if you are still looking for a topic to work on for your PhD or for your master's. If you're able to do this, you will be able to find a topic, a question you can answer for your PhD or for your master's thesis. So I think that is a summary of what the master literature base looks like.
Thank you very much, sir. We have less than 3 minutes to answer just 2 questions. So one of the questions goes to us: how to write an introduction? Yeah, how to write an introduction section of a research write-up, and also what strategy works best for you?
Okay, I will agree with you to say that I would say introduction could be one of the most difficult part of an article to write. What I can say is that to write an introduction, first of all, you need to read other introductions that people have written. Usually, an introduction has component that it has to expatiate on. It should give a background. It should give the problem statement. And then it should state what people have done. That is me now speaking about an original research article or a review article. You state the background, state the problem statements. What has other people done about that problem? Then what are you planning to do? That is what your introduction should tell. So in that as well, in telling what other people have done, you would mention the kind of results they have gotten, the method they have used, the materials they've tried to use to answer those questions. And then you state what you are trying to do differently from what they have done. That is in complementary to what they have done to further that field. So that's what your introduction looks like. But you may be able to ask me, there is a book I can share. I can send that to Miss Zainab, and she would be able to probably get it across to all of the audience that may be interested. So the book is quite lucid on what we should write in each of the sections and how we should go about the writing. So this session is not about writing introduction for your research. I could have spent a lot more time to clarify. There are a couple of things that we could do for each of the sections. In fact, there are kind of sentences that suits each of these sections. So I will stop there.
Thank you very much for your response. On last note, this particular question, I just wanted to comment on it. In a write-up such as thesis, is it allowed to include a new opinion without prior opinion on the subject matter, like a new hypothesis?
Yes, why not? That's why they call it research now. You don't have to agree with all past authors. You don't have to. You don't have to. But whatever opinion you are expressing, it must have accurate backing. It must be logical. It must be philosophical. It must be coherent. So long as it has all of those components, you could express a different thoughts. There's always a first time for everything. So you may be a first proponent of such an idea, but whatever idea you are proposing, for instance, now, would have some leaning. It must be leaning on an idea.
Thank you so much for your responses. Thank you so much, sir. Jazakumullahu khairan. Really appreciate your presence here today. And I believe, including me myself, I've been able to pick 1 or 2 points, which is going to be very crucial going forward in my academic career and to others too. So a big thanks to the organizing committee of Muslims in Research. Yeah.
So for people who missed my profile before,
okay, yeah.
So this is a brief about myself. So I'm a registered mechanical engineer. My background is a mechanical engineering. I've moved on to material science and engineering. I've done research in materials and manufacturing before. I enjoy traveling and meeting people. And when I'm not doing material stuff, I spend time with younger researchers and professionals and prospective university students. So if you want to find me on online, you can get me on Google Scholar, and that's the name I go by, Tunji A. owoseni. And if you're looking for me on LinkedIn, you'll find me as Tunji Owoseni.
Thank you so much, Dr.